This administration they have proven to us where they stand. Let me make this clear to you all again. When they wanted Granger out of administration, Sarah Ann Lynch, Lillian Chatterjee, Gregory Quinn, and Maduro from the ABCE nations they call had so much to say. 20 of our children were burned to death, locked up in a jail, essentially. And they did nothing, said Sarah. Sarah Ann Lynch said nothing to this day. You tell me. Lie down, mama. Look at that. That's a woman. Where is Child Care Protection Agency? The DPP should be jailed, at least put on trial. Not a charge. Hello. Chants are going up across Ghana. Share the broadcast with others. A child said that she was raped and buggered by a minister in the government. A 49-year-old man, a 16-year-old girl. And you telling me that there be no charge against him? Come on, man. No. And then he's saying he resigned, as if that's supposed to please guy. And these people know this is the beginning of what it for us. Saying he resigned doesn't mean that justice has been served for this young lady. Where is Barra Jagdeo? Where is Barra Jagdeo? The Guyanese have a right to be upset, enraged.
Registration is not justice.
Free the girl now. Free the girl now. Where's Priya? That's it. Free the girl now. Jail the rapist. That's a chance you have from the crowd. How is it? Is that the guy you working hard, see? Yeah. The guy you working overtime? Nothing.
This is my fight for you. For us.
Appreciate it, man. Look at that. at that. Blinken, the PPC regime has failed our daughters. You see that sign? Look at that placard. Blinken, Guyana is in trouble. We have incensed people here. USA don't condone rape. That's another time to say. We do not know where this child is. We don't know where this child is. We have no idea where this child is. We have no report from Binja Prasad. She hasn't sat with the media for even 1 minute. Binja Prasad has not sat before the media to give a host a press conference. Jagdi always on press conference. Binja can't go before a press conference. Jagdi is not feeling questions from the media about this child. Where is the girl? No surrender! Somebody said arriving soon to talk with us. No surrender! So I'm here with, look, Odessa is here with us. I'll have to put this in face, right? I don't have my external mic. So Odessa is here with us today. No man, you got 3/4 left. Odessa, you're here with us today. A mother. And that's the premise from which I want you to speak to us. A mother. You have a daughter? A mother who has a daughter. Tell us, please, all of us, they're viewing you here all across the world. What is going through your mind as you consider all that surrounds the Madhya children and now this girl and the response to this situation or this situation? Be as candid as possible, of course.
I don't think the last part was necessary at all.
Knowing you.
But two words that immediately comes to mind. Safety. One, of course, safety and security. In terms of whether our children are safe, or who is there to protect our children. The situation is quite disheartening. And even looking at some of the people in the public, how they've responded to the situation.
Right.
I think that a lot of consideration has not been given to the fact that this is an indigenous child. And when we say indigenous, it's not the same thing as saying a child of East Indian origin or of East Indian or African origins or that sort. It's not the same thing.
Right.
That child comes from a totally different culture.
Altogether.
Comes from a totally different upbringing. And I think that, with every child, our considerations should be the same. But with our Amerindian children, it is even so much gentler because of their lack of exposure to certain things. You see, my children, while they're younger, they're very much exposed and informed, and they're aware of certain things. You know, certain vulnerabilities my children would have.
Correct.
Because those are the indigenous children, the way in which they are taught to look up to leaders.
Correct.
And the way in which they are taught, not as though our children are not taught to respect,
Right.
but they respect it with a certain degree of fondness.
Correct.
And that degree of trust was misused, it was abused, that child was violated, and then we feel, I mean, even with that negative situation, a positive could not even come out of that. And that makes the situation even more sad. That, you know, this guy, as a minister, he at no point, at absolutely no point, was the government sympathetic towards the
child.
And that is where my
The
problem.
child. And that's what I asked you about. Because you and I think, share similar sentiments. I listened to Finale's TikTok, to put it mildly. That video, when he announced that Darmalal asked to resign, Ali said nothing with this about this girl. I ain't sure I paid attention to this very clean. Ali didn't even mention that there is a victim. Say something about that, please. Oh, because he did not say that Nigeria was affected by it? Thank you. Go ahead. Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
And that's even, you know what I did an interview yesterday and so on.
Okay.
But at that time, I had only read the statement. But last night, I was able to look at the president's video.
His demeanor and everything. Speak to us.
Listen,
Speak to
started
us.
off by telling me that you're in Trinidad. Who give a damn if you're in Trinidad?
Okay.
I was even trying to figure out where to look on this. Oh, I'm over here. So what? What does you being in Trinidad got to do with the situation? Because whether you're in Trinidad or you're in Guyana, you're handling the situation badly. And that is the reality that we have got to come to. That this situation was poorly handled by the government. And then to go down now, at the end of the day, he's still part of the party.
Oh my
So
Lord.
what you're telling me? He's
Exactly.
part of y'all. This is what you're telling me.
Correct.
You're concerned about this child. You have zero concern or care for this little girl. Not even a little sticking. And not even a little one-liner who will provide counseling for the victim.
Right.
Nothing. You separate the victim from the situation. So now Nigel is the victim because he was crying and so on in this house that you violated allegedly this child. I mean, I don't understand. I don't understand where we are as a nation. And I mean, I saw us getting here, but it happened so fast.
Right.
By the time you even realize that it's a mess.
Because we had
It's a
Madia
mess.
20.
The president need to fire the people writing his speech, the advisors, everybody. Because all of them stupid. You people tell me that is the level of folly you will put together. You tell a man, go there and tell them, Nigeria, I'm crying, so he gonna bother working no more.
Right.
Then we wake up tomorrow and Nigeria's ambassador to some country we can't find on the map.
Or maybe a high commissioner to India. That's where they dump most people, right?
Well, look at the bag of vacancies right there. That's the vacancy. You understand me? That is the place that we are in. But there's no consideration for the nation's children. And I cannot understand how as a parent you could sit at home and not be enraged by this.
Exactly this.
You know, I come publicly and speak about these things, and I try to speak as slowly as I can because I want to say things that I got no business saying in the public. And then they start irresponsible and I'm excited and all that.
Right. I understand.
But this situation is upsetting.
And that is actually has brought me and have me moving so much because if I stay at home and keep thinking the way I think, they would not like the response.
And I'm not feeling well at all. In fact, I'm speaking to you in pain. And not just from this situation. I'm physically not well.
Okay.
And so that's about it.
If you're now joining us again, this is currently happening at State House. That's in Georgetown. And for those of you who can't remember what State House is, or those of you who don't know about State House, especially those who are not from Guyana, it is where the taxpayers support whoever sits there as president of the country, whether, as in this case, installed an illegal president, Irfan Ali is living off the hard work and sweat of taxpayers of Guyana. Uh, they are there now, and I guess the folks are just basically coming out more in their numbers to vent their frustrations as to the fact that Irfan Ali has been so heartless in his pronouncements on this matter here, and making out Nigel Darmlal as though Nigel is the victim. We have Odessa Primus is giving her view again on the matter. And let's continue to hear what she has to say while we await some others.
And should be commended. You know, it's people say, oh, should drop the case because of this and that. Something else can't even take a little bit of pressure, much less what that child was made to.
That period of time, indeed, day after day.
Yeah, but we in the public, is based on my knowledge. A rape victim should be interviewed once in the presence of all parties, the organizations, police, so that the child don't have to be in the story.
Correct.
But in this case, based on my understanding, is I interview every minute, every second, somebody comment, somebody got questions, somebody want to ask back something. I mean, come on now. Come on now. What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing to our children? What message have we sent that child? Because she's not going to remain a child forever.
No.
What message have we sent to her? What message have we sent to every other victim who's looking at this situation, be it a child or an adult? Because as I was saying yesterday, if this was an adult.
Caesar, we're back at it again in front of State House. The people are not giving up. The people are back out again in their numbers. And this is exactly what's happening. Welcome back again, Mr. Caesar.
Yeah, Mark, thank you so much. And this is Mark, this is basically what I was looking for from a strategic perspective. And listen, the people are right in the center of downtown Georgetown. Perfect setting for the protest here. So this is great strategy here by the organizers of this protest.
Good strategy indeed. They have a press conference coming up in just about 10 or 12 minutes from now. What is your take? Let's get some your take on what Blinken, Secretary of State, may say at this press conference.
Well, Mark, it's going to be a joint press conference. So my expectations is not for him to throw the government under the bus as part of a joint press conference, but I think he's going to talk about, wanting the government probably and the opposition to work together and talk about, enhancing relations between the United States and Guyana, whether from a well, I would think that it would more so align from a financial perspective. But like I would have said before, I would like it to be from a holistic perspective. But we have to wait to see exactly what he's going to say during his press conference. But it's going to be very professional. I don't feel like if he's going to take any jabs at the government during the press conference. But this government deserves a few jabs. Not saying that he may not, question them behind closed doors. And I hope that he does that. And I would have been hearing that he may not be meeting with the leader of the opposition. I'm extremely disappointed because there's no way that Guyana can be deemed a stable country. I think it's more aligning with being a failed state. So it would have made a lot of sense to engage the opposition leader to get a feel as to what's happening in the country and what may need to be repaired. But at this point, okay, we have him. Okay, Mark, you can break.
Let's just break away quickly for a few minutes there. The press conference there with Secretary of State Blinken. Let's hear what's going on there, Mr. Caesar.
Funds into the country's indigenous communities. Our own Export-Import Bank is working closely with the Guinea's government on a major gas-to-energy project that's going to cut emissions by 50%. American companies can bring unparalleled expertise, high labor and environmental standards, and transparency to help power Guyana's dynamic growth, to advance regional energy security, to deliver tangible benefits to all the people. Priority for both of us. We've had the climate crisis, we've had COVID, we've had conflict, including the Russian aggression against Ukraine, form an almost perfect storm, all contributing to the Caribbean's highest food prices in a generation. We're grateful to Guyana for co-chairing the U.S. Caribbean High-Level Action Committee on Food Security, where the country is leading efforts to expand small farmers' access to technology, reducing barriers to trade, reducing barriers to transportation. We provided about $28 million in emergency food assistance over the past year. We're investing more resources in local capacity so that ultimately countries across the region can build their own sustainable, productive capacity. As the breadbasket of the Caribbean, Guyana will continue to be a crucial part of this effort. Guyana is also an important regional security partner. We appreciate Guyana hosting Southcom's upcoming trade wind exercise. This is, I think, the 39th or 40th year that we've been doing it. That's going to strengthen the Caribbean's ability to combat transnational criminal organizations and other threats and respond to natural disasters. Our law enforcement agencies are working closely together, cooperating to counter illegal narcotics. We're helping Guyana train police and reform its justice system to improve accountability and transparency, as you heard the President say. We also emphasize the need to continue to work together to reduce violence. Since launching the Caribbean Basin Security Initiative in 2010, the United States has invested over $830 million to strengthen law enforcement, to reduce illicit trafficking, to prevent youth crime. We're supporting CARICOM's new crime gun intelligence unit in Port of Spain, which is improving information sharing, enhancing training, and helping disrupt the flow of illegal firearms. And yesterday, our Department of Justice announced an experienced prosecutor, Michael Benari, as our first ever coordinator for Caribbean firearms prosecutions. This will deepen our cooperation in actually bringing offenders to justice. In endorsing the Los Angeles Declaration, together with 20 other countries in our hemisphere, Guyana pledged to promote safe, orderly, humane, and regular migration. And they've demonstrated that commitment by providing healthcare, education, and other services to Venezuelan refugees. The United States has contributed about $4 million over the last year to help Guyana manage this challenge. And we're grateful to the Guinean people for their compassion, their generosity in the face of Venezuela's ongoing crisis. This kindness to new arrivals is really not surprising, given how central immigration has been to the story of so many families in this country and throughout our region. We see it in vibrant neighborhoods like Little Guyana in my native New York City, in the Caribbean family roots of our elected officials, including Vice President Harris and many members of our Congress, several of whom, as I said, were with us on this visit. And yes, in the music of Rihanna as well. I know it's really a pleasure. Our ongoing dialogue. At a moment of such profound transformation, such profound change, such profound hope. With that, Mr. President, back to you.
Thank you, President Ali and Secretary of State Blinken. Given the limited I will entertain four questions, two from the Guyana media and the two from the United States media. I'd like to ask you to raise your hands if you would like to ask a question and remind you to kindly state your name and the media house that you represent. Thank you. I acknowledge the young lady in the black top.
Happy to start. To the second part of your question, that's not something that came up in our conversations today, but I'm sure it figures in the conversations we uh, to climate. There's been an ongoing effort that I think has been of great significance, and we see that, as I mentioned, in the PAC 2030 initiative that leaders launched, that is having a very practical impact on helping to build resilience, helping communities adapt, doing everything from helping smallhold farmers learn new techniques, including with low water usage for irrigation, bringing financing and technical expertise to the adaptation of clean technologies, making sure as well that countries are prepared to have a disaster response as we see. I mentioned that we've into the food security piece itself, but the 2030 program is where the bulk of our efforts are targeted in this moment. And as I said, that's playing out in a variety of very practical ways that is going to have an impact, I think, on the lives, the livelihoods, and the resilience of communities. The one thing I want to emphasize when it comes to food security more broadly is, look, we've been deeply engaged in making sure that we were doing our part in the emergency response that has been necessary to the crises that the world has been going through over the last couple of years, is again exacerbated even more by the Russian aggression against Ukraine. Just since that took place, we provided about $13.5 billion around the world in emergency support on food. In addition, the United States is by far the largest donor to the World Food Program. We provide over 50% of its budget right now. But what I hear again and again from my colleagues in the region and around the world is that as important as this emergency assistance is, and we'll continue to provide it, what matters even more is helping countries develop their own sustainable productive capacity so that they can effectively feed themselves and feed others. And that really is the focus of the work that we're doing through the 2030 program and in our bilateral programs with Ghana.
Thank you. I'll entertain a question from the US media. I recognize the gentleman in the third row. Could you identify your name?
And I was wondering if you were concerned that towards a scenario like in 2018, where the United States did not recognize the process. And secondly, on Venezuela, are you considering at all an exchange of views for access up? And if I may ask a question on the topic that there seems to be just as much a sense of urgency now as it was last fall, when we were already talking about a sense of urgency. And yet here we are, and nobody has yet stepped up to be a UN multinational force. So my question is very direct to Mr. Secretary. Is the United States ready or not to lead such a force? And if not, who will lead such a force? And just to finish on that, do you think the Security Council is united on this issue? Thank you very much.
Leon, thank you. Would you like me to start, Mr. President? Thank you. First, to Venezuela. Our focus, the focus of countries throughout the region and beyond, is putting Venezuela back on a democratic path. And that starts with preparations for free and fair elections. next year. That is the objective, and is clearly the desire of people throughout Venezuela. There are a number of very practical steps that the regime in Caracas can take to demonstrate that it wants to move down that path toward free and fair elections. What you just mentioned, that is the disqualification of a leading member of the opposition from competing in such elections, certainly sends the opposite message, and something that I think is deeply, deeply unfortunate. We're determined to continue international cooperation and coordination to press the regime to commit to free and fair elections in 2024, and to take the necessary steps to. And as I said, there are a number of very practical things that it can and should do. I'd also say more broadly that the purpose of the sanctions that we've imposed ends in the. That's not the objective. Sanctions are a means to an end, and the end is to help respond to the desire of the Venezuelan people to restore democracy. And again, as I said, that starts with free and fair elections. With regard to this is something that we're engaged on constantly, and as you've heard me say many times, Leon, it's one of my top priorities as Secretary of State, looking out for the security, the well-being of Americans abroad, notably those who've been arbitrarily detained, used as political pawns. So we're focused on it. I'm not going to get into any of the engagements, diplomacy, deliberations that we have, but I think, as you've seen in the case of Venezuela, we've been able to bring a number of Americans home over the last year. And around the world, we brought nearly 30 Americans home who've been arbitrarily detained in one way or another. So it's a constant focus, and I'm not going to get into any details of where and how we might do that. With regard to Haiti, we are seized with the fierce urgency of now when it comes to Haiti. We've been working very hard across a number of lines of effort. First, to, of course, support the Haitian people with humanitarian assistance and development assistance to try to make sure that they have the basic resources they need to survive. Second, we've been supporting a process that would allow Haiti to reach a broad consensus on a return to democratic order. And I met with Prime Minister Henry just yesterday when we were in Antigua to talk about the work that's being done to bring everyone together, to develop a consensus on the way forward toward the full restoration of the democratic order. And third, we've been very focused on security, or the profound lack thereof. And there, we've spent time, resources, effort to try to strengthen and build up the Haitian National Police. But it's also our assessment that while that's necessary, it's not sufficient. And as you've heard from leadership in Haiti, as you've heard from the Haitian people, as you've heard from the Secretary General of the United Nations, as you've heard from the OAS, there is a consensus on the need for some kind of multinational force to support the work of the police, to try to create some space and a more secure climate, so that the work that we're doing to strengthen the police, to strengthen security services in Haiti, has time to take hold, and the government can regain control of the country and not have it dominated, as it is in so many parts, by gangs. We're in very active conversations with countries in the region and beyond about such a force, and we're in active conversations, of course, with the United Nations about what it might do to give a force the proper imprimatur from the international community. Part of this involves making sure that countries step up to play important roles in such a force, particularly identifying a country that would play a leading nation role. That's something, again, we're very actively engaged in. So is the Haitian government. So what I can say to you today is it was very much part of the conversation at CARICOM yesterday, very much part of the conversation that I had with Prime Minister Henry, and a focus of our work, and we are seized with the urgency of moving this forward.
Thank you. In relation to Haiti, as Secretary Blinken said, Haiti took up a substantial part of the agenda for CARICOM. There are three issues that must be addressed in relation to Haiti. That is the security issue, the humanitarian issue, and the political issue. And these three issues were distilled at CARICOM Heads of Government meeting. We had President Kagame with us from Rwanda, and we decided on a few things. One, the eminent group of leaders, which include former Prime Minister Kenny Anthony and Bruce Goldin, they will continue to work with the leadership of Haiti. And when I say leadership, not only the government, the broad stakeholders of leadership, broaden representation in government. And this is what is termed the transitional period, the transitional government. Prime Minister Ori is committed.
Yes, let's break away from that for. It's bad public speak. Horrible. I can't stand it. But what is your take? Because people want to hear about Guyana. Secretary of State Blinken is in Guyana. And these journalists, the guy that asked that question, the last journalist here, should be asking questions that are relevant to Guyana. To Guyana. If you have questions about Haiti and other places, send them to the State Department or somewhere there so that they can ask questions about Guyana. Your take, Mr. Caesar.
Well, Mark, you see, based on what Mr. Blinken would have just said, and before I even get into, what I really want to get into, I just find it very convenient that he spoke of free and fair elections. He is standing in a country that there was not an exercise of free and fair election, and the nerve to speak of free and fair election in Venezuela. Listen, Mark, I don't usually agree with people who take dictatorial stance, but listen, the United States and these countries knew who they wanted to put in power in Venezuela, and that person
Broadening.
was denied emphatically. Okay? It's the same thing that's occurring here in Guyana. So I don't know why we're talking about free and fair elections. They have chosen a group to work with. They've made sure that that group was placed in power, though they weren't elected, duly elected by the people of Guyana. Hence, we have this group of people that are in power right now.
And
Go ahead.
surely Blinken understands that, and
this
yeah, his administration, the U.S. Headed by President Biden, actually almost experienced a coup by the Trump administration. We heard this guy actually, and let's not forget, he wanted to basically overthrow the Trump administration.
Mr. Secretary,
Hi.
is the State Department currently preparing to engage with the Biden transition team? And if not, at what point does a delay hamper a smooth transition or pose a risk to national security?
There will be a smooth transition to a second Trump administration.
A smooth transition to a second Trump administration, even after Biden won the elections. The Democrats won the elections. So Blinken understands what's happening here. But before we get back to that, let's see what's happening.
Transitional government. He is committed that he is not going to run in any future elections. And Kenya and Rwanda would have jointly committed to putting together some form of troop to support the Haitian police and to have a presence. Now that has to be financed, and that has to come through a mechanism through the UN. And this is where we now have to focus our work. How we get a UN resolution and how this mechanism is developed. The third issue is the humanitarian issue. We have to find a way, and we are all committed to find a way in which we can have a line of control in Haiti that will allow humanitarian aid to get into the country and reach the people. These are three critical issues that the heads discussed, and we are committed to working on this. I must say that Prime Minister Ore at those meetings yesterday committed to working with the eminent group on the broadening of the transitional government to include other stakeholders so that we can build more consensus on the way forward. In terms of Venezuela, I just want to make one point. There is no price to democracy and the rule of law, and there is no time constraint to democracy and the rule of law. As long as it takes, we have to toil until we achieve democracy and the rule of law. That is what is going to build stability, strengthen society, and advance the prospect of the people of this region and of Venezuela. So I would say we cannot give up. We have to work to ensure that these fundamental values are intact. Thank you.
Thank you. I recognize the gentleman. Just please identify your media host.
Thank you very much. With regard to what we just discussed, Haiti is certainly one area of, I think, potential and important collaboration with Guyana on the Security Council, precisely because it's going to be very important to have the endorsement of the United Nations for any force that goes in to support the police to create a more secure environment. So that's one of the areas that we actually talked about today. But one of the things that I discussed with the president and with the team was our strong interest in learning from on the Security Council. This will be an ongoing conversation between us. When it comes to carbon credits, as is noted, the agreement that Guyana reached with a private corporation, I think, is of great significance and demonstrates in a very powerful way how Guyana is all at once using responsibly the abundant resources that it now has at hand, while also making investments in the climate future, making investments in transition to renewables, and also, of course, as I heard from the president very clearly, showing a very important and powerful commitment to preserving its forests, which are a resource from which many benefit well beyond Guyana. So whether there are more such opportunities in the future, I think that will go to, for example, whether other private companies are interested in pursuing something, and we'll leave that to them.
Thank you. There is just two issues. One, we want to ensure that our world is a safer place. Prosperity. There are many challenges that the world faces today, Haiti, the war in Ukraine, and there are other challenges that contribute to conflict and contribute to barriers that does not allow the global citizen to enjoy the full prospect of life. These are things that we will elaborate in much greater details very soon. Our team that will be working at the Security Council will be meeting with our stakeholders in Washington and other stakeholders to further define and to prioritize actions that are
It's painful to listen to Air Finale. Really, really painful, especially how they treat Haitian nationals in Guyana. People want to hear about human rights issues. People want to hear about the uh, lack of inclusivity. They want to hear a lack of freedom of speech. They want to hear that people are being discriminated against, and those are things that we see happening every day in Guyana. Discrimination. There's no rule of law. There's a breakdown in the justice system. Uh, Example, what the DPP is doing, what some members, senior members of the Guyana Police Force, they're, they have been doing since the 1st of May, 1st of August 2020. And now let me go to the U.S. State Department that responded to through the its press secretary a question that I had with regards to meeting members of the opposition. And from the response that I got from the State Department is basically, uh, I'm not sure if they are going to be meeting with the opposition leader. I just can't say what's the situation with that. But we can talk about that. It's 3:17, 17 minutes after 3 o'clock. The Secretary of State has a 4 o'clock meeting as well with members of the U.S. Embassy, staff members, that is. And then after that, maybe he will squeeze in Aubrey Norton, squeeze him in. But that's not on the official agenda. But the U.S. State Department said to me in their response that as it pertains to the question of how does the Secretary of State feels, how does he feel, sorry, about his visit at a time when scores of Guyanese, mainly women, are protesting against a senior minister of the regime who is accused of raping a 16-year-old schoolgirl? They basically said, hey, hi, Mark, we cannot comment on this individual case as it is a matter for the Guyanese police and the judicial system. However, Secretary Blinken is aware that the minister resigned on Tuesday. Around the world, women and girls are the most vulnerable in societies. The secretary hopes the young woman who is the subject of this matter is receiving compassionate and helpful assistance. Regards, State Department. What is your take on that response as it pertains to the young girl?
Well, Mark, it shows that this visit had just one agenda in mind. The visit was limited based on the questions that was asked, based on the answers that were given. The visit was very limited in scope, meaning that we were just basically in a financial box, and not that alone. We didn't speak about the issues that are affecting Guyana and Guyanese really. We were talking about Haiti. It was a full out general conversation. So why the visit to Guyana? I'm not getting any substance as to why the visit to Guyana outside of, pronouncing on, finances and probably the oil sector and carbon credits and these type of things. Listen, Mark, Mr. Blinken talking about carbon credits and all these things, it's not doing anything for someone like me because those carbon credits are not hitting the Guyanese people. So once it's not affecting the Guyanese people in a positive way, then really you're talking to the PPP and their high level cronies only. You're not really speaking to us. But I just want to touch on one thing that Irfan Ali would have spoke on. He spoke on democracy and the rule of law. What nerve? Now, the question he should be asking himself is where is the democracy in Guyana? Firstly. And secondly, where is the rule of law in Guyana? We do not follow laws under the PPPC in Guyana. That is the most lawless government we've ever had in place. So where is he going trying to be diplomatic? So this whole thing is a sham. I'm sure They limit the media houses that were allowed. The people who would ask the real questions were not allowed to be in there.
Um, let's go straight back to the
Mhm.
protest now in front of State House. We cut away from the press conference for a few minutes.
$700,000 worth in Guinness tax on
Guinness
the
tax,
portion of the
correct,
land.
correct.
All is in the deed registrar record. And this man just saying, he's telling me that the land belongs to Narayan. But there's a vendetta between Bob Barnum, God rest his dead, and the man that he took the land to put the highway.
Okay.
And the man is trying to now to take away black people land that is on the southern side of the Linden Sudeck Highway.
So here you have an expression of
Hillfoot, yeah.
did you all hear that clearly? So we're making a public appeal here for attorneys to help this gentleman because this is painful for me to hear. It is worrying again that the judicial system in this country is being explored yet again. And we have reports that even legal documents are not being respected and valued. If someone has a title from anywhere, a title in their hand, 20 years ago, whatever years ago, nobody can come 2 years ago and say, well, it's theirs. It doesn't, it doesn't make any sense. So somebody in Lands and Survey or the Deeds Registry or somewhere would about to find another document to give to this man Narine according to this report. And the court is prepared to respect, instead of investigating how Narine ended up with another title, if there was one before this. It's that simple. So thank you, sir.
And the judge is saying, the judge, this is what I want the entire world to understand. Judge Narayan, I'm calling your name again, Narayan, says we do not have confidence in the land and in the lands and survey.
So if he doesn't have confidence in
control the entire 86,000
Of
square
course.
miles of Guyana. And if he is a servant of this country, for this country, saying that he do not have confidence in the lands and survey, the land was surveyed, it was being documented in the land and survey, and he doesn't want the land and survey to intervene into that matter.
Wow. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
What is your name?
Nigel London is my name.
Nigel what?
London. And your name is? You know the name?
I go to school. Western Rara.
It's London, huh?
Comes in London.
That may be my family.
My parents, my father comes from EV.
Okay, so apart from that little sidebar chit chat about that, the folks are out there in their numbers in front of State House. They're protesting, and by now I'm almost certain we are all should be confident that Blinken has gotten the message. These brave protesters out there did a fabulous job today. Mr. Caesar?
Yeah. Mark, I would have said earlier that this whole visit didn't serve a purpose, but I had some time to think about it, and I could take one positive out of this. And that positive I would like to share right now with the Guyanese people. This visit shows that you are responsible for making sure that there is democracy in your country. No one is going to help us. It shows that nobody cared, nobody paid any interest in the people. You know, Mark, we got to get out there. We got to protest. We got to make sure that that GCOM organ is working. We got to either find a way to get to unseat that DPP. There is a lot of work to be done because listen, Based on this visit, the Guyanese people are not stupid here. Based on this visit here, they would have understand what's actually happening here. There was no questions asked when it comes down to the posture and the ridiculous behavior of this government and the injustices that they would have meted out to the people of Guyana. No questions was asked. So it tells us now we have to take this into our own hands, not committing violence against anybody, but we are going to make sure that this government, this uncaring government, never wins an election again in Guyana. And that journey starts now, Mark. We cannot continue to posture this way. We got to keep the irons in the fire. We got to continue with our protests. We got to make sure that we're keeping this government in check. You know, we need to do something from an opposition perspective when it comes to GCOM. We definitely needs to do something. We cannot have people sitting there who are not transparent, who are not doing their job. GCOM is critical as to where the people of Guyana go from here.
Yeah.
Okay, in order for us to have fair and credible election, Mark, we got to make sure that we get a hold of the Guyana Election Commission where we can hold them accountable of being transparent and honest when it comes to elections. So everything is back over into the hands of the Guyanese people now.
And that's exactly what it's about. I couldn't disagree with anything that Mr. Caesar just uttered there. That it's up to the Guyanese people to fight for what they want. We just cannot depend on individuals to just hop into a nation and believe that they are going to embrace that nation and fight for you. You guys have to fight for your democracy. You guys have to fight for your freedom of speech, freedom of expression. You guys have to fight for that. You cannot expect someone to just pop into your country and fight for your interest. While in some instances they may want to speak out and protect you at some times, but you guys have to fight for that. You don't expect Mr. Blinken or anyone else to hop into Guyana and stand up and fight for you. It is just not going to happen. It's not going to happen, unfortunately. And that is why we want to see more of those MPs in the opposition to go out and fight for your rights. We don't sit here and want to chastise any one of those MPs because of personal grudges or grievances. No, absolutely none, because we understand what it is. And hence, Mr. Caesar is saying just that. Go out there and fight for your people's rights, fight for your constituency. What we are going to, and we are seeing already, is that people are going to, and mostly those in the opposition, are not going to feel comfortable with what Mr. Blinken has to say because he has not directly addressed their concerns. Human rights, persecution, and discrimination against mainly folks of African descent, and those who are not part of the PPP regime are also being discriminated, as in the case with the individuals, Jamal Aziz and his wife got their butcher shop burnt down. People were beaten. People were tortured by the police force. All manner of things. These are things that all of us as Guyanese, would have to stand up and defend. I agree with you 100%, Mr. Caesar. Let's head back to the live press conference to find out what's happening there, please.
On the targets we set to achieve the results of 2050. Now, we are creating an environment in which the private sector can also participate. Like the example of Hess Corporation, a US company that is now part of carbon purchase arrangement in Guyana, that is benefiting communities and contributing positively in the climate change equation, but importantly, on demonstrating that the model of carbon credit sales from the forest is one that can be an important part in achieving the targets that we set. So I would say that the US and Guyana, we are working together on setting the right tone, creating the right policy environment, and supporting the right type of initiative that will create a platform for all stakeholders to be a part of.
Thank you. I will entertain the last question from the US side. Could you raise your hand if you would like? Yes, I recognize the lady on the platform.
Thank you. So if you look at the numbers, you will see in the last 3 years, in 2022, I gave the number of foreign direct investment from the US in Guyana stood at 4.2 billion US dollars. This is the highest in history. And if you look at the investment from different countries, this is the highest investment over the last 3 years. More importantly, we are now working with Exim Bank on a $2 billion programming that can be unlocked for Guyana. Now, the problem is twofold. I said before publicly that the aggression from the US private sector was not there in terms of going after the opportunities. But as a result of the strong bilateral relationship over the last 3 years,
Can't allow him space for garbage. Can't allow him space for crap. Um, the folks are still in front of, and we really want to see the folks out there. We have lost connection with them on the ground. We want to see more of the people out there and voices and so forth. So we will check on others who might be there on the ground, or maybe we'll just have one of our operators there in Guyana to head down to the square of the. I'm sorry, to State House to find out what's happening there, so we can get more of the people on the ground and hear their perspectives, and to see more action of the people there on the ground. Um, thus far, what else is going through your mind as we take a look at some of those comments that we're reading? What's going through your mind, Mr. Caesar?
Well, Mark, I could tell you one thing. I do feel the disgust that the people of Guyana feels, because they would have been the one, especially the people who are living below the poverty line in Guyana. They would have been the one who, would have been feeling the wrath of this government. And, to see maybe the top country in the world send one of their high-end dignitaries to Guyana, and he would have come here and not meet with the opposition, would clearly send a signal of disappointment to the people of Guyana once again. They were disappointed with the 2020 elections. They were once again disappointed with the local government elections. And here again, they've been met with disappointment. That is all that it has been thus far. They have not been able to gain anything from the patrimonies of their own country, a land in which people would have lived through floods, lived through poverty, you know, live through, you know, unequal rights, brutality by their own police that their taxes would have paid to have in place to represent them. Good example what would have transpired with that young lady when that commander would have wanted to force her to retract her message, retract her allegation, and sign to whatever it is that he wanted her to sign to. It shows the government that the people of Guyana is living under. Anthony Blinken would have just visited a country that is led by dictators. Guyana is no democracy. Okay, he can listen. I don't mind sitting down in a room with anyone. He can sit down in a room with me and we can debate this. And he's going to lose over and over again. Okay, Guyana does not have the mechanisms in place, the framework in place that demonstrates a democracy. I'll take that back. The framework may be in place, but the resources that are now governing this country does not match the framework. They don't use the framework as a guide. Hence, Guyana is a dictatorship.
All right, we're
That's my
seeing that.
opinion.
We're definitely seeing that. Nowhere is Glenn Lal at all. And one would have thought that Glenn Lal would have joined this protest with his oil placards, his placards about oil. Now is the right time. Glenn Lal got to get into the habit of joining other protests as well to make this thing a real unity thing. I'm surprised that Glenn Lal isn't out there. Glenn Lal has to understand that yes, oil wealth is important. We're lacking that a great amount of our oil resources. Glenn Lal has been protesting on that, but these the basic human rights, the fundamental rights of individuals are being deprived. And Glenn Lal must not just make this a oil something; it's a all something. And I'm surprised and disappointed that Glenn Lal has not joined this protest out there. Um, so, and let us just try to be very objective here, guys, and not allow emotions and these sort of things, please. And so I'm surprised that Glenn Lal is not out there. If Glenn Lal wants people to join with the oil, he must join with all as well. Human rights and injustices are equally as important as our resources being stolen from us.
Mark, your comment is well taken there. I recall early on one of your morning shows, I was encouraging the people to vote APNU when Glenn Lal was doing his walk and he was hollering and screaming at me, who is that guy, and all this stuff. It's interesting to see that, we're having this exercise today. And someone like Glenn Lal, who I do respect a whole lot, although he hollered and screamed that morning, it doesn't phase me. It doesn't phase me. You're going to always get respect from me. Okay. But that being said, Glenn Lal, it's not just about oil. There's a lot of other general issues that are affecting the Guyanese people. And that's why, someone like you could never be a good candidate because you're going to be very limited in scope. You have to expand yourself, sir, and you got to start thinking outside of the box. You got to start seeing what the people are seeing, not just what you want to see.
And
Okay?
it's pretty obvious and a disappointment in Glenn Lal. This is not to say that we should not wealth and deal with wealth and the country's resources, and oil resources, of course. But what about human rights? What about violations of people's rights and people who are being persecuted? These are things, these are important matters that need to be addressed as well. And again, I say that Glenn Lyle should have joined with the people, even if he had his placards and his folks them to protest and have something about oil. It's all well, but join the people. It's not just the other way around that you get upset when people don't join you. Join the people. Let them see that you're in this together. Let them see that you embrace their hurt as well. and that you understand their hurt. Don't ignore their hurt and feel that it's all just about oil, oil, oil. Glenn Lal should have been out there with the people protesting. It's not an all, it's not an oil thing. It's not a one thing. It is an all, ALL thing. And so that's just my take. Any closing remarks before we go? Because we have lost the protesters there. And unless we go back to here, what's the conclusion at this press conference?
We just concluded programs from the Islamic Development Bank, programs from the Saudi Development Fund. We're now working with the Qatari Development Fund, the UAE. So we have set ourselves some benchmarks in terms of what the cost of financing should be in this market. And also, we are not going to borrow on variable rates. Now, it might be surprising to you, but sometimes there is a misconception on the cost of financing. And we believe that in certain part of the globe, the financing is cheaper. That's not the case today. If you look at the rates that we are getting and where it's coming from, you'll be very, very shocked. Now, having said that, we are a partner with many countries, and China is one of our development partners. China has a huge footprint globally, and the Chinese companies are very aggressive in the way to do business. They go after opportunity, and that aggression is now being replicated by investors from different parts of the world here in Guyana. The fact is that very little was known of us. Very, very little was known of us. Not that we did not exist. The same forests we are celebrating today existed, but we did not have the type of public following or global following that we have today. And sometimes I say that maybe what drives public following is the oil and gas sector, because since oil was discovered, we have seen a very welcome interest from the global community on Guyana, and we are utilizing that interest to showcase Guyana not as an oil and gas producer, but as a country that has the ability to.
I'd rather go in a nursery school and sit, or I'd rather go at the in China and sit down and listen to the Chinese talk, even though I don't understand everything in Chinese, but than to listen to this clunk speak. I just can't take it. Imagine he's talking about oil now, nothing about catfish. Wait, he done with catfish, Mr. Caesar, as we prepare to wrap up this clunk, he's done with catfish?
Well, listen, Mark, if he's gonna talk about oil, let him talk about how he's gonna make the revenue from the oil benefit the people of Guyana. You know, I heard Mr. Blinken would have spoke on growth. I mean, these guys are supposed to be intelligent, man. Okay? Growth starts with your people. Growth starts with your people. It doesn't start with infrastructure. It doesn't start with deals. Okay? It starts with people. And these guys, they're just not getting it, Mark.
Let us stop for a quick minute, please.
We did recently publicly. Lessons learned, transparency, accountability, all of these things have been important to me from day one, and they're reflected in the publication of the report. More broadly, with regard to the report, we've taken, I think by our count, more than 40 concrete actions to address issues raised in the report. We've identified some additional steps to make the department even stronger, more effective in response to future crises. We've applied a number of the lessons that we learned from Afghanistan and that are outlined in the report in challenges that have come up since Afghanistan, in Ukraine, in Sudan, in Ethiopia. There's a lot of work that continues to be done and continues to need to be done, but I'm very proud of the fact that our workforce has really stepped up and, as I said, already applied many of the lessons learned from Afghanistan. It's also worth noting that, as the report does, that all told, we evacuated more than 125,000 people, including about 6,000 American citizens, and that's because of the extraordinary work that our people did on the ground in Kabul and, for that matter, around the world. And I should also add I have an ongoing commitment when it comes to our Afghan partners to continue to bring out those who wish to leave. With regard to the specific finding that you mentioned, uh, this was an incredibly complex challenge that involved multiple parts of the State Department, as well as many, many other agencies in our government. I had senior officials reporting to me. I'm proud of what the team was able to accomplish, including, as I said, the evacuation of more than 125,000 people. But as I also said, I'm determined that we learn the lessons from this experience. Going forward, we're going to make sure and going to make it a standard that a single principal level crisis leader is appointed to oversee all the lines of effort that go to responding to a given crisis. That's something that we've taken very seriously, taken away from the report, and that we're going to follow going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, President Ali, Secretary of State Blinken. May I ask the media to remain in place? Very much.
All right, that's where we have lost connection, and that's about it as we wrap up here today. We are not walking away with much at all. We are not. We're just not. And I noticed there was a comment there for someone who said that, yes, oil will benefit all of us, hence Glenn Lyle and his crew protesting. Nobody's saying nay. It's billions of dollars. But people are also, their immediate concerns, human rights violations, injustices. These things are important because you can get all the oil wealth in the world, and if people's human rights aren't respected, their political rights aren't respected, their constitutional rights are trampled upon. All the oil wealth in the world can't do anything to repair that. We've got to be cognizant. It's not just all about wealth. It's not all about that. Your closing remarks, please, Mr. Caesar.
Yeah, Mark. While this visit by Mr. Blinken was a solid visit, you know, favoring, of course, the PPPC and the government that is right now being showed favor by the Western world, it was a sour taste in the mouth of the Guyanese people, but also the Guyanese people would have won in a few ways in that they were able to protest United States Secretary of State. They were able to protest him and let their voices be heard, let their displeasure be heard. I do not know if later on this visit he'll be meeting with Mr. Aubrey Norton, but if he doesn't, it would be a crying shame. And like I would have said to the Guyanese people before, we have a lot of work to do. This fight is in our hands. We are basically on our own. I am here with you guys. I'm here 100% with you guys. We're going to go to battle. We're going to liberate our country once again. We're not going to lose Guyana. We're not going to allow anyone to come and rip us off and leave us in an economical, unstable country, leave our people with scars. We're not going to allow that. That's not a part of Guyanese culture. For those who are not awake, for those who are not out protesting today, you guys need to wake up and understand what's happening before you. Because by the time you would have chose to wake up, you will be dictated to for the rest of your lives. And I'll be sorry for your children. This is not just for you. Keep in mind, we cannot be selfish here. This is for the future of our country. This guy is borrowing money all over the Middle East. Okay, as a public accountant, Mark, I'm sorry. I have to elaborate on this. If we're getting all this revenue coming in, Mark, why are we borrowing so much? Why are we borrowing so much? Why aren't we taking our gold and diamond and creating a reserve, not just exporting everything we get out of our gold mining? It's not hitting the Guyana gold board. It's not being taxed properly. It's being smuggled out of the country. Take our gold and diamond and back our dollar with that gold and diamond, and also use our oil to back our dollar. That would give our country some more relevance from a financial perspective. We would be able to go into deals in a better position. But when you see, Mark, you have political and financial dunces in place, this is what you get, just wild borrowing and spending. So to the Guyanese people, we got work to do. We got a little bit what, over maybe 2 years, because I am sure, guys, Barry Jagdeo is gonna ask you guys for that additional 5 months. Irfan Ali was sworn in August, so we're probably talking August 2025, unless something happens earlier and we have to go to the polls earlier. Do remember, and this is for the opposition, we have to keep fighting for a clean list. We have to keep the pressure on the Guyana Elections Commission. We cannot forget about that. We have to keep up the fight for our little sister that was raped. We have to keep up that fight, and we
Absolutely.
have to allegedly rape, and we have to make sure that she gets justice and that Nigel Darmlal is behind bars. We have to set standards in our country. People will not be allowed to peruse our parliament without having respect for our citizens and without having respect for our laws
All
in
right.
Guyana. Mark, I hand it over to you.
We thank you so much. We'll end at that. I think Mr. Caesar spoke sufficiently for my closing remarks, so we'll just end it at that. I'll see you later on this evening, right here on 107.1 FM. But we thank you all so much for your time spent here with us. Lots of you are disappointed at that press conference, not much achieved. And then I'm not sure what, if at all, Mr. Aubrey Norton put on his suit and waiting to meet with Secretary Blinken. I'm not sure how possible that is. He's not on the schedule. Maybe they will squeeze him in just for a quick photograph, and that's about it. But God bless you guys. See you guys later on this evening. Mr. Caesar, thank you, sir. God bless.
Thank you, Mark. Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello, this is attorney Shellen Washington, owner and founder of the Washington Law Firm, located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.